I'm Charlie and this is Ben, But hey,
We can go with that.
yeah, there we go. One of the things I was really interested in talking about was I think that we look at the concept of targeting on Facebook probably a little bit differently. And so I would love to be able to chat with you here and kind of ask you more about the way you're looking at it and really get down to the bottom of why you're doing it that way and maybe present some of the way that I'm thinking about it. And at least there can be somebody to be a fly on the wall between two folks that have been teaching for a long time and have quite a bit of experience in the different ways that they think about it. And I think that is an opportunity that a lot of people don't get. And so why not bring it to them?
Sure.
The first thing right out of the gate, just, your last video, let's just start there because it's your most recent thing. So most top of mind, let's go with that.
Sure.
It was, how to retarget, and you were talking about site traffic and engagements and followers and video views. I'll be honest, I don't do much retargeting at all, but I'm curious as to one, just how you feel about retargeting in the ecosystem. And then, people can dive into more about how to do it, but what you find the most value, and maybe last point of how you define that value when you're tuning audiences, when you're running ads.
Yeah. So just retargeting in general, we have to say that it's less effective than it used to be pre-iOS 14.5. We still do a lot of retargeting. I'd say for most clients, there's going to be, a retargeting ad set in a campaign or a retargeting campaign within that. So typically it's where we're going to see our best results on, say, a cost per purchase, cost per lead basis, depending on what we're advertising. I know you typically don't do a lot of retargeting. Well, from what I understand, is you're more going to do open targeting, and a lot of those people are going to be captured within everyone that's available, right? And they're going to be sort of by default retargeted. I think there's a lot of merit to that. I think where I like to specify some retargeting would be, well, we like to do that with most clients anyway. I feel there's a little downside to doing so. But I think where it becomes particularly important is in ad accounts where you're advertising something where building that relationship with the prospect becomes more and more important. So is it as important with, say, a low value e-commerce business? And by low value, I mean the products that you're selling, not necessarily the business itself.
Right, of course. Like something that's 20p.
Yeah. It's not going to be as important in that, right?
Yeah.
But if we're advertising, a $20,000 service, I think the opportunity there is, and sort of the need for it really, to get multiple exposures of whatever it is that you provide to your prospect is there. And I think that with retargeting, we're able to do that more accurately and be more confident that we're going to hit those people again and again.
I got you. So with, you call it open, with respect to open targeting and how it's going to be, as you said, kind of doing it by anyway, but less focused. Is it the lack of focus on those individuals that is really the pain point? So the lack of the ability to control the funnel that is what you're trying to fix for?
Yeah, I think it would be control, not necessarily the funnel, because I'm not the biggest fan of they have to do step A, step B, step C, that sort of thing. But I think when we specifically retarget, we can be more confident we're reaching people, perhaps with ads that don't immediately lead to a purchase or sale. If I think about the typical campaigns that we're running where we're using a lot of open targeting, we'll be running a sales campaign, let's say, and we're looking for those purchases. A lot of the times when we're running ads to retargeting audiences, we might be looking to do something with virtually no expectation that someone's going to take an action there and then. And I feel like if we were to leave that open, it's like, what are we really optimizing for here? We could just end up reaching anyone. Whereas if we're really specific with, okay, we're only going to retarget our email list or people who visited our website in the last 180 days, something like that. And we want to put this demonstration video of how our service is delivered or this customer testimonial in there. Now, we might, depending on the business we're advertising, we might think someone's only going to go for this service when they're ready. They're not going to be interested until perhaps their life circumstances are there. I get a good classic example. You run an ad campaign for, say, like a divorce lawyer, right? There'll be people watching that content. Maybe they've checked out someone's website who, their marriage is a little bit rocky and they're sort of thinking, but they're not going to pull the trigger until, that's what they're actually doing. They are actually sort of separated and they've decided with their partner, okay, this is done. So in those circumstances, if we're retargeting those people, we're not going to be able to generate a lead until their life circumstances are ready. And we want to be able to put stuff in front of them again and again that means that when they are ready, that's the only business they want to work with. So that's the logic there. And that's quite a specific case, but I think with a lot of, particularly with service-based businesses, that becomes more and more important.
No, I get that. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's about, I mean, ultimately, I think the concept of retargeting and narrowing your focus and being is the focus is the priority of being top of mind when the decision needs to get made. And so that when somebody says, all right, I'm looking for this thing, you're the thing that they're like, all right, I'm not looking for this thing, I'm looking for this person or this service or this company to do it for me.
Yeah.
In a retargeting audience, let's say, I mean, what do you think is a typical conversion rate of a retargeting audience? If I have 1,000 people in a retargeting audience, how many people might buy?
I mean, I think it's going to depend on there's so many variables there, right? So it depends on the
Sure.
price of the product. You know, there's tons that go into that. How
Yeah,
warm is that audience, right? So, you know,
sure.
there's warm audiences and then there's warm audiences. And someone who visited your website for 30 seconds 4 months ago is nothing in comparison to someone that watches everything you put out on Instagram, for example.
Sure, sure. And then different than somebody that added to cart yesterday and all of those
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
Let's say if I have a retargeting audience where 25% of those individuals are interested in what I'm doing, then I would also, my point to the unit economics is that retargeting audience is probably going to be more expensive, right? Like, let's say
Yeah. On a CPM
broad
basis.
audience is, for the purpose of this conversation, let's call it a 20-pound CPM.
Yeah.
And a retargeting audience is a, let's say, 40-pound CPM, just to keep it hyperbolic and simple for the example. It's, in that case, one of my pain points is I'm investing more money at a higher cost per inventory and a higher frequency, creating negative experience for people sort of at scale. So if I know 3 out of 4 people don't want to see my advertising and I'm paying more money to reach them, what I've noticed in talking with engineers and product stuff, and I'm curious if you've seen some of a similar thing or how you feel about it, is that one, ultimately our job in Facebook is to help the machine give end users a positive experience, right? Like, I'm sure you've heard the term, like the average person swipes the height of the Eiffel Tower on a daily basis. And so my issue isn't so much in trying to control the funnel, because I definitely believe in that. I definitely understand that you want to be top of mind, not controlling the funnel. Yeah, and I believe in how you're thinking about it too. I think we're on the same page. I think my concern is that I'm investing a portion of my budget, 10%, 30%, whatever the business happens to be. It could be 50%, who knows? But I'm investing a considerable portion of my budget specifically creating a majority of negative experiences for the Facebook user. And in my experience, that tends to raise my cost of advertising, even for my top of funnel efforts. And I'm wondering if you've seen the same thing, or if you've thought about it that way, or if yes, you have, and you know what, the cost benefit analysis completely pays off.
Yeah, I think I would lean more towards that last point that you made, that I would be okay with annoying a good chunk of the audience if we feel we can drive sales from the remainder that are interested. I think I completely understand what you're saying. I think for me, where I would come down as to whether I would, you know, completely buy into that versus not would be, what are we advertising?
Okay.
So I think that would make a big difference. So if, for example, we were running a 3-day flash sale for a business that has, let's say, large warm audiences, but is relatively new to Facebook and Instagram advertising, so they don't have a lot in their ad account yet, not built up. In that sort of circumstances, I would want to be pretty retargeting heavy in terms of the budget split. We're going to hit the people that have already bought or already interacted. We're going to hit them hard. There's not, I don't have enough faith in Meta's targeting systems for them to be able to find those people during that sort of time period. So in that sort of scenario, I'd be very nervous, just sort of trusting it, that it would find those people or find the people within the warm audiences that are willing to purchase exclusively. But, you know, if we were running like a more sort of stable campaign that's being run over a long time period, I can completely understand what you mean. Like, why burn out some of your best prospects? Why annoy some of the people that have already shown an interest? That makes complete sense. I think there are circumstances, often with service-based businesses, where we're I want to force that they know how we do things, because I know that helps with the conversion. I want to force certain things. I want to force that they're going to see some client testimonials, because I know that when that business's sales team gets on the phone with them, they're probably more likely to convert. It might help with subsequent metrics. Whereas, yeah, if we're, certain things, I'm on the same page.
Yeah. So what I'm getting here then is really that for you, at least, you'd rather, like you said, force those impressions, force those ads onto people to make sure that they're top of mind. And I guess the way that I view it, just kind of wrap this up, is that if I'm forcing my impressions onto people, knowing that in this case, 75% of the people that I reach have already kind of made a decision to say no, so it's a negative experience, but to your point, the economy of scale might pan out. My concern is less in the people that I'm upsetting, the 750 out of the 1,000 that I'm upsetting, and more in the fact that my cost to reach the other 20, 50, 200 million people is going to go up, because I've given the signal to Facebook and my advertiser score and my relationship with them as a business partner that I am invested and creating a negative experience for their users. And my other pain point to that is I think where you have lack of faith in Facebook's ability to find the right individuals that are warm in that audience, I think I look at it more as I have a lot of confidence in their ability to understand who wants to see my type of content. And I have way more confidence in that than I do that my audience is inclusive of those people to a fullest extent. And that, somebody might have ad blocking, somebody might be signed up with a different email address, the right person might not have, gone on Instagram, whatever the case is. I look at that retargeting audience more as a 99.9% exclusion that raises my cost of advertising across the board.
It's an interesting thought, and I can completely understand the logic. And you are going to pay higher CPMs to reach a retargeting audience than you are a broader audience. So I completely understand that. And
I guess my point is my broad audience cost per CPMs goes up because
when
I'm
you're
running
retargeting. Sure, yeah, but that's likely to happen as well. Yeah. Yeah. I think that makes sense. And I think there's some logic to following through, through what you said. Okay, you do this, it's going to have a negative impact on here. I guess it all boils down to what you're looking to optimize for. So, for example, I would be completely on board with what you just described if we were advertising content to build an audience.
Okay.
Like if that was the end objective, okay? That was what I'd want to do. Because that user experience is going to be the absolute most important thing. But if, for example, we're advertising something relatively expensive and the primary objective was something like lead quality, which, would be a concern that a lot of clients will raise, then by sort of forcing, ad impressions of client testimonials, how the service is delivered, videos that show people who had a nightmare situation just like your potential prospects have, that sort of stuff. By forcing those impressions, it's going to cost more sort of within the ad campaign, but we might see better results on the conversion, particularly if there's like a sales team involved because they've been pre-prepared. So that wouldn't apply to an e-commerce business necessarily. I mean, it could if it was a high value e-commerce product. You might see a higher percentage between add to carts and purchase or something along those lines. But I think that's where I would differentiate between the different type of thing. I'd be less concerned about Facebook doesn't necessarily want me to do it this way, and more like, no, I want this person to see this thing before my sales guy gets on the phone, because they're going to more like to convert. Would probably be where I draw the line on that.
No, that makes sense. And so you're really moving to that push towards qualitative. I guess